I need to show you this before I can start my video. Hi guys, Eva here. Welcome back to my channel, The Ink Reader. And this is actually the first video that I'm filming in 2021. I again apologize so much for the quality and the light in the book Oscars. When I noticed how bad that was, I wanted to refilm, and then I got my COVID vaccine, and that was an adventure. And then school started again, and of course I was always working, so yeah, I just didn't want to put up that video at the end of January by the time I had refilmed and edited again. So I said, listen, at the end of the day we're here to just look at the books and speak about books, so it didn't really matter too much. So that's why I decided to upload it again. But I am trying to film during daytime, although I live in England, so that's what daytime means. Still pretty gloomy and dark, but I'm trying to do my best. I will definitely not use like the room lighting at night anymore, so apologize again. But yeah, my first official video filmed in 2021 is this, and I definitely wanted to film a bit sooner than now, which is more than half of a month, and I wanted to put up this video before, but I've been feeling a bit low because of my university not going great. I've been a bit stressed overall, I guess, and then the vaccine and all that adventure happened, so yeah, I couldn't basically film before. But I'm here to wrap up what I have watched in fall 2020. Now I'm getting confused because it's just now it's starting 21, so I keep saying 2020 for a little while for sure. But anyway, without further ado, as always, I divide these in categories, so yeah, you know the gist, or if you don't, well, it's very not much to know. TV shows, these are only seasons I entirely completed, so not series that I'm in the middle of or I gave up on, which I could do a whole video or probably a series of videos on that. But the first one I actually completed in fall was Criminal UK, and this is a series based on in the UK, London, I believe, where basically you follow how a set of detectives interviews suspects on a crime. So it is a bit of a different format than your usual crime TV show, if you want, because you don't follow anything else if not the interview phase. And for that I was really curious to see how it played out. Unfortunately, I don't know, I watched the first season, I gave this 2.5 stars. I'm rating these as I rate books on Goodreads, so from 1 to 5, and I gave it 2.5 because although I really enjoyed the performances and enjoyed the idea behind, overall after a while I just got a bit bored. So I don't know if I will ever check up season number 2, because there are a bunch of actors including Jon Snow. Well, it's not called Jon Snow, but for me will always be Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, so I might check those out. I think there are just 3 episodes or max 4 episodes in each series, so it shouldn't take me too much. But yeah, it's definitely one that if you are a really big fan of those kind of criminal TV show, or like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, which I used to love, and all of that, you might want to give it a try. It's definitely interesting. Then of course I watched The Boys season 2. This was on Amazon Prime, and I mean, I've been loving The Boys since the first episode, season 1. Season 2 was no different. I think the stakes were even higher. The action, the brutality is definitely adult TV show, very brutal, even if you are an adult. I think it's not for everybody because of the brutality in it, but I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. And I'm curious to know, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna do like a spin-off or they're gonna necessarily continue on, because it felt pretty much wrapped up, and I absolutely loved it, everything. And this is based on a graphic novel which I've read a bunch of volumes, but I had forgotten by the time the season 1 came out, and I think it translates in as a TV show perfectly. Just it is amazing, and if you like superheroes movies and all of that, you cannot miss The Boys. And I'm not even that big of a fan of TV show with superheroes in it, but some of my favorite TV shows, including The Boys and Umbrella Academy, are like my favorite TV shows ever, and they both include superheroes, but they're definitely taking a dark side of superheroes, so I guess that's why probably I love them so much. And then I have finally, because it was about time, I binge watched Friends. Now, my mom was a huge Friends fan growing up, and I never paid too much attention. I might have seen some episodes here and there, but I never actually sat down and watched an entire episode. And now I have, and I've watched until season 3 in the fall, and I'm now up to season 7. Just for the sake of keeping the fall period, I've just watched first 3 seasons. Gave 5 stars. It's Friends. Like, it's freaking hilarious. One of my favorite TV shows ever is The Big Bang Theory. Since that has finished, I have been like really struggling to find another one that I love so much. And although it's so different and I don't want to compare them, I think like Friends is honestly one that I can sit down for 20 minutes and honestly enjoy and, you know, binge watch it, while usually get bored and switch it off. So yeah, it's great. 5 stars. Everybody loves Friends. Now I get it. Now I'm part of a family, if you want. Then I watched Rick and Morty season 4. Finally, Netflix gifted us the second part of the season, which was so freaking annoying when I found out that only 5 episodes were on and not the whole thing. But finally we got it. 5 stars again. It's Rick and Morty, and I think one of the things I was most excited about this time, apart from the content, always top. I love the fact that I discovered that each episode is like taken from the title of a famous book or movie, I guess a movie. And so I didn't know that, and I got so excited then to try and figure out what kind of reference was each title of each episode. So yeah, I don't know, probably I'm the last one to find this out, but I was really excited about that. 5 stars is Rick and Morty. I love Rick and Morty to pieces. So, and then final TV show that I actually finished after ages, but I did not watch any K-dramas from the beginning to the end without giving up, because we cannot get, you know, 16 episodes and not have a kiss for like the first 11-12 episodes. It's just annoying. So I just stopped watching them, and then I found this called My ID's Gangnam Beauty, something of a sort. I'll put here the cover so you can tell what it was, and this kept my interest. And I think, I don't know if it was because I was interested in the topic itself and how they would handle that, because this is the story of this girl who is born very ugly, and then when she leaves high school, after she's been bullied a lot, she gets plastic surgery and she gets to this university in another city where no one knows her, and finally she can kind of blend and have a group of friends. No one is bullying her anymore. And then on the first day of university, she finds out that a guy who used to go to her middle school and knows her real face is there. And so she starts panicking because she doesn't want him to basically leak who she was or tell other people how she used to look. And then there is the other girl who's apparently, you know, the popular pretty one without any plastic surgery, but she's got a lot going on her own. And so the topics that were raised, it was kind of interesting. Really like the main couple. And I don't know, I was just curious enough to keep going. So I gave these 3.75 stars, and I guess Korean dramas are self-contained for a majority, so you watch 16 episodes and that's it. It starts and it ends, so there is no sequel. And so it was a whole story if you want in there. But episodes can be pretty long. But with this, I enjoyed it. I kind of binge watched it in like 3 weekends or something, so. The only stand-up comedy that I actually watched was Zero Fucks Given by Kevin Hart. Now, I have been a huge Kevin Hart fan since day one. I think the guy, you know, he could literally tell you his shopping list and make it funny. So I love the guy. However, I have to say that among all I've seen of his stand-up comedies, some of those had me with tears in my eyes. Love them. I have to say that this one was probably one of my least favorite. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I enjoy the fact that he's kind of full of himself, and I understand that he went through a journey and he is self-made in a lot of sense, so he deserved definitely where he is. However, it was a bit too much. I don't know, I think it was focused more on making jokes on him what it was at, so how rich he was and all of that, and we lose a lot of content. The anecdotes that he told us were less and less interesting than they used to be. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I definitely didn't love it as much as the others, and I didn't have tears in my eyes at any point, which usually with him I do. So documentaries with these, knowing me, or if you don't know me, this is mostly true crime that I watch on Netflix and I binge watch on Netflix. The first one was I Am a Killer, which is this Netflix documentary where they go and interview death row inmates in the USA, and each episode is dedicated to one death row inmate. It explains why they got where they were and their story, and there is a lot of the episode there is also them talking with the camera in front, so it's really interesting in that sense. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I think it's 50 minutes or something is not enough for me as someone who's really interested and is in studying forensic psychology and all that. It's enough depth, but it was definitely interesting, and it gave me a lot of prompts to actually then research. And I think in some cases it was actually really sad, because you could see why the environment and what happened to these people's life led them where they are today. So it was really sad on one side, but it's definitely something that I watched really quickly. It's something that I would definitely check out the second season. If you are interested, it's definitely a good one. Although I didn't give it 5 stars or anything because I wanted more, I cannot say that it was not well done or it wasn't interesting, because it was. Then I watched The Staircase. So this, we're gonna be here a while. No, I'm kidding. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible, but I watched these, and then someone from my university told me to go and listen to the podcast because it was so much more objective than The Staircase was, and it's true. So if you want to watch this on Netflix, which is really popular documentary, I think the guy who did this won an award, not for this I guess, but for another kind of similar documentary they did. If you want to watch this, then definitely do not think that once you watch this you know the whole story, because you don't, and you have to listen to the podcast. And I will also read a book, which I am gonna read for my reading true crime TBR at one point this year, because again, the Netflix documentary, for how much I appreciated what he did, it tells you the side of the story that's Pearson's side of the story, and it's very much biased, considering that the editor of this documentary had a relationship with Pearson throughout the length of this documentary that spanned for years, decades, and then they break up when the documentary is done. Pearson is a perfect example of a psychopath. He's very manipulative, but he's also very likable, so you like the guy. So I had some instances in this documentary when I was watching it, I was saying, you know, even if you did it, because there is no doubt in anybody's mind, I think that this guy did it, I still like you. And then once I've listened to the podcast and a lot of things came out, I could then listen to Pearson's voice and what he was saying in a different light, and say, oh well, actually I don't like you. And I don't want to spoil anything, so for me it's difficult to discuss this at length, but I don't know, at one point I even wanted to make a video separate where I got kind of go into details in everything that I think is wrong with this guy and why there's no absolute doubts that he did it. I don't have to be a police officer or a judge to see that he absolutely did commit this crime. Nothing can, you know, take away my mind and say, oh, you know, someone might have gotten in the house or did it, or the owl theory, or all of this kind of madness. There's no way in hell that this guy didn't kill his wife. And it's really fascinating, because though you got this man in front of you telling you, oh no, I'm totally innocent, and convincing millions of people that he was innocent, and you can see a true psychopath doing his magic if you want. And so for that sense, it's truly fascinating. And I'd say if you want to watch The Staircase, please do not stop there, and because if you stop there, you have just a quarter of the whole picture, and so many proofs and so many things that were actually happening in the trial were left out. So you, at the end of this, was like, why, you know, there was reasonable doubt. There wasn't, but the documentary doesn't make it clear. So I gave the documentary 2 stars, not because it's actually not well done, but because it takes out so much from the truth and it shows only what Pearson wants you to show. And although the director goes on and say, oh no, I told him that I was going to be impartial, it's so freaking clear that he wasn't, and the editor was in a relationship with him as well, which is absurd. Like, no way this was not biased. And once you get the whole picture, you realize how bad this actually was. And if people go around, which the majority of people will because they don't know about the podcast, they will get the wrong idea, and that made me mad. So this is 2 stars just because this is not how a true documentary should be done. You're not telling me the truth, you're telling me your version of the truth, or in this case Pearson's version of the truth, which is not the truth at all. So I could go on ages going in any details, but I won't. So let's move on to the next one, which is the Amanda Knox, again on Netflix. Now, a bit of background of this: I grew up in Italy, where Amanda Knox stayed for a few months and then for 4 years after she was accused of killing Kircher. I don't know how you pronounce her name, but anyway, I grew up thinking like that she was absolutely guilty. And to these days, one of my relatives in Italy, if you ask them, they will tell you that Amanda Knox was guilty. I think that probably 90% of Italian population, if you ask them, even 95, will tell you that Amanda Knox and Raffaele Sollecito were absolutely guilty of committing this murder. They're not. And again, if I didn't watch this, I would not know why. So this actually, I'm so grateful to this documentary, because then it prompted me to actually start doing research from my dissertation on what I'm doing. So this documentary meant a lot to me, not necessarily because it's perfect, but it compacts in 2 hours, not even there, a lot of information, and it tells you, listen, this was a miscarriage of justice, and it's so clear that this girl didn't kill this other girl, and these are all the perfect reasons why she didn't, and this is why Italian people convicted her. And it's shameful on one side to see how my country, the police and the law works, and how it doesn't work, if you want, and what they did in this case, it was horrible. But it's also really fascinating to see how this girl reputation and how her way of reacting and just living her life led so many people to think, oh, she's absolutely guilty, just because of who she was or who she appears to be in the media. So that's a whole topic of trial by the media and all of that. But I just so wish that this was translated in Italian. Maybe it is, I don't know, because I watch Netflix here in England. And just to tell people, you know, there are memes still around to this day, how she got away with murder and she never was guilty to begin with. It doesn't make no sense whatsoever what the Italian police was saying and the way this girl was treated, and Raffaele Sollecito. So they ruined lives based on prejudices, and I just, you know, it prompts a lot of discussion and me thinking about how many other times this might have happened, why this is happening, and all of that. And is it just an Italian thing? Is just something that happens in general in the world? Would this have happened here in USA? I don't know. So I'm really grateful for this documentary, and I ended up giving 4 stars because again, it packs a lot of information in just a short time. And then finally, I watched American Murder. You can see a trend in here. American Murder is the story of the guy in Colorado. I don't remember where exactly, but it's really famous. Not many years ago, he ended up killing his 2 daughters and his wife because he had a mistress, and I guess he wanted to start a new life. So this guy was dumb as shit. He clearly got away with murder for like 1 day, and then they caught him immediately. And it's really, I think this documentary ended up giving this 4 stars because at the time this was filmed and done, there is so much we still don't know about him. I guess there is still not enough people that made research and all of that. I've pre-ordered a book just to see if the book will go in more details. But this one, it's really hard to watch, I'll be really honest, because I believe that for me personally, and guess for some other people at least out there, it's easier to understand why a total strangers would go out and kill another stranger. You know, it can be a psychopath, it can be a million reasons why someone would do someone like that. So I understand those kind of people, but understanding how a father could kill his own daughters, very little daughters, like 2, 3 years old and 4 years old, barehanded, and his pregnant wife, it takes this to a next level. Family annihilators as a topic that really interests me, but I think it's a really taboo topic even for us studying in general forensic, because it's something on the other level. It's something that you cannot sit down and understand, so it's really, I don't know, it's really hard for me. So this was really fascinating and yet appalling. Like it was appalling. There's no other way to say that this was so gruesome. Without going into any details, you don't see any picture of the bodies or any of the sort. You just literally follow the story of how he got caught, basically. And he got caught because he's a freaking moron. Like, this guy, he would have never gone away with it. I would be curious to know how he thought he was gonna get away with it. I gave 4 stars to the documentary, not because I didn't like it. I like it. It's just that I wanted so much more. But I do understand why, for the general public, they cannot do like a 12 hours documentary, which would interest me probably, and other 4 people probably. So the first movie I watched, I started with a bang, and was The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie. I found this on Amazon Prime, I believe. And it's a really complicated story, so I'm not gonna even try to give you a proper synopsis, but I had watched King Arthur, I believe, and I wasn't too impressed. Although I liked how it was done, the story itself was not really interesting. So when this came out, I said, listen, there are some of my favorite actors in it, so I need to give it a try. And I ended up absolutely loving this. 5 stars, hands down. I think it's not only the action and the banter between the characters, but it's also the plot itself. I really enjoyed it, and how he mixed different things, and how he brought a lot of elements that I could recognize really typical of England. I absolutely loved it. Loved everything from the plot, actors, performances, the ending. 5 stars, hands down. It's probably one of my favorite movies that I watched in 2020, so that's saying something. And I watched Outworld. This was on Disney Plus, and this is from Pixar, I believe, and it's the story of these 2 boys who have lost their father, and then they find this kind of magic object that bring the father back to life for 24 hours. However, they are stopped in the middle of a spell, so the father appears only from his waist down, and they have now 24 hours to complete the spell, going through a lot of adventure and get to see their father, which they had basically forgotten the face of, apart from pictures, because when he died they were so little. When you got these 2 brothers that are really different, fighting a lot between each other, they now have to come together and go on a mission. I always loved Pixar movies, and I loved the ending. Like, I was really emotional, but I didn't love this as much as other Pixar movies, I'll be really honest. So I gave this 3.75 stars. I don't know why. I don't know if it was something that didn't feel particularly new, although it must have been. It was. I don't know, there was something that didn't click with me as many other. But again, it's still a really good movie, especially, you know, for children. I would say that this is for middle graders, not really for children as much. It can be a bit more intense, and it was definitely emotional. So, you know, if you want to check this out with your children, I recommend. Maybe not a 5 years old, that's what I'm saying. And I proceeded to watch Parasite. I was really curious to watch this because, of course, it won the Oscar, but because I had watched some Korean movies before, including one of my favorite movies ever, which is Memories of Murder, which is a Korean movie, old movie. And I was really curious to see and watch this. This was weird, and I didn't end up loving it like as many other people did, but there is a weird pace in all the movie, and it made me very uncomfortable. And when the end happened, I was definitely glued to the screen. So although the pace was weird, not at any given point I was bored. So for that I gave it 3 stars. I do see why, but at the same time I don't. I guess it was more about the social comment that it was making, and for that I understand, because cinematographically I don't understand. I don't understand why the Oscar came. Yes, say that I'm glad that a Korean foreigner movie did win this. I don't know. It was 3 stars for me. It's one of those movies that I've just watched it once. I will probably never rewatch it. Probably, I'm not sure. I'm very glad that I did. So it's a movie that I would have wanted to watch at least once for sure. And it's something that it's very unexpected. So if want to watch something that won't bore you and that you don't know exactly where this is going, this is a perfect choice. Then I watched 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, because I never watched this and I wanted to watch it, and I gave this 3.5 stars. Definitely not my kind of movie. I'm not really into travel movies that much, although for example I love some of them, for example Into the Wild, but I didn't love these as much. Said that I really enjoy the story, I really enjoy the acting. It's another movie that I just wanted to check that out of my to watch list, and I did. And then there was Brad Pitt for like 2 hours and a half, and I also didn't know this was a true story until I was done and I researched online. So that was really fascinating. I don't know, I think the journey that the character goes through was also really good. There was not an element that I can say I hated this particular thing in this movie. It was nothing I hated, but I think, I don't know, it was just a bit slow in some parts for whatever reason, or it didn't feel like a 5 stars movie, but I really enjoyed it overall. Then I rewatched Constantine. Constantine is one of my, again, top movies of my teenagehood, with Keanu Reeves. He is an exorcist and he has to basically prevent hell on earth, and it's Constantine. I have been loving Constantine since day one that came out, and I watched it in the movie theaters. I love Keanu Reeves. Pretty much everything I watched with him I ended up loving. The final part and the growth of his character, again, I felt it so much. I have to say that for fantasy and dark fantasy, or like all these kind of things like exorcism and devil and angels, is something that really interests me. So that definitely plays a part on what I enjoy or not. But 5 stars is Constantine. I will always love and rewatch Constantine until the day I die, probably. Then I watched The Devil All the Time, and reason being that I had just finished the book and I had acquired the book because I wanted to read it before watching the movie. So I did just that, and the movie ended up being exactly as the book. It's basically reading the book. So because I didn't love the book, I didn't end up loving the movie as well. Said that, again, it's a 3-star movie, but so I didn't hate it by any means. It didn't add anything to a book that I already felt lacking in some aspects. Loved the performances, but they did change actually something, and it's just the time sequence. So something happens in the movie way before it happens actually in the book, but it doesn't really change anything at the end of the day. Self-contained story that, I don't know, it didn't give me the depth that I was wishing. So it's dealing with atrocious people doing atrocious things to each other. I just wanted to explore those characters more. Instead, it's just, you know, you go from point A to point B, and it's actiony, definitely, and there is a lot of murder and brutality going on, but there is no much character introspection, which I guess for me was something that was lacking. But by no means is a bad movie or a bad book. It's just that it wasn't necessarily my jam. Rewatched Spider-Man Into the Multi-Universe. It's another 5 stars. I've already wrapped this up. Like, I rewatched it. It still is good. And I also rewatched Johnny English because with Mr. Beans, because I don't know, I didn't know what to watch one night, and it was just there, just perusing, and say, listen, I've not watched Johnny English in ages. The first one, I think I've watched the second one twice, and I felt like rewatching it, and it's freaking hilarious every time. It's something that you just watch when you want to switch off from, you know, a tough week or a tough day. That there is no brain cell in watching a movie like this. But I absolutely love the humor, even his face. Like, honestly, someone I can stare at his face and just laugh, but it's all done in a good way. Like, I think he's absolutely great. Like, the way he can make you laugh with his expressions, it's hilarious, and it's just a really nice comedy. Then I watched on Amazon Prime Dark Waters. This is with Mark Ruffalo, and it's based on a true story on this lawyer who basically is called by a family friend to his farm after he moved to another city, after he kind of got his success. and he's called back because this farmer is noticing that all his cows are dying after drinking the water from the river. And it turns out that this big, huge company is basically dumping waste chemical and very unhealthy substances in the river, and is basically poisoning the earth, the animals, and ultimately humans that live there. And this is a true story. So it is about this huge case that this lawyer basically takes on, and it's basically his life work, I guess, of denouncing this company and saying this is what's happening, and asking for recompensation for how much you can ask for recompensation after, you know, hundreds, thousands of people probably died, and animals, and it was terrible. Now that I'm actually talking about this, I think this is the true story of this company that was making Teflon for pans, everything you cook with. So everything that was done with Teflon and was actually very harmful and was causing cancer in humans. This is not only a movie that I really enjoyed, because although it's a movie about a case, it's really interesting. You know, Mark Ruffalo really enjoy all his movies, especially because he's done a lot of movies where he actually takes the role of a real figure that denounces something really big happening. I watched already one of these kind of movies by him, so I already knew I enjoyed him in these roles. But I think it's so important that people know about Teflon, and that it's still going around today. So although they think tested and they've made it more safe, it's still something that is problematic. So this movie is combining history of something that happened fairly recently, but it's also saying be careful today of what you eat, or from what you eat and you cook, and a million other things that Teflon can be found in. So 5 stars for this. It is a really intense, long movie, but everything in this movie, it's important that everybody on earth knows, and that this actually happened, and that this company, what happened to this company, I think this company is actually still going. Something that you might want to check out for further reference, first of all, but also it's a really good movie overall. Then I watched on Amazon Prime A Time to Kill. This again, there was a young Matthew McConaughey, how you pronounce it? McConaughey, I don't know how you pronounce that. I don't care how you pronounce that. But he was really young and I absolutely love him. He's so handsome. I mean, he's still handsome to this day, he's 100%, but like, you know, I've never seen him that young in any movie. So I watched like the trailer and was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch that. And then turns out that Samuel L. Jackson is in it, which is another one of my favorite ultimate actors ever. First time I think I've seen him was in Pulp Fiction, which is my like top movie ever. Again, I'm saying ever a lot of times. Anyway, Samuel L. Jackson is a staple, he's like one of my favorite actors. And then there was Matthew in there, so it was like perfect combination. It was really difficult for me to watch this because of the topic. This is the story of this little girl who gets kidnapped one day on her way home from the grocery shop in a southern country in USA, where there is a lot of racism, where it was a lot of racism. I think this takes place in the 80s, 90s, something of the sort. Or probably even before, I'm not sure. But basically this girl gets kidnapped with these 2 white guys, and they brutally attack her, sexually attack her. It's not seen, you don't see anything, but you hear some of the voices in the moment, and it was horrible. These guys are caught from the police after the girl survives actually the attack, and Matthew ends up for a series of events defending the family of this girl, and Samuel L. Jackson plays the part of the father of the girl. And I really enjoyed the movie. I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't know why it's not perfect 5 stars. It just didn't feel like a perfect 5 stars, but it was very close. And it's again another movie that I can check out of my watch list. Then I watched Burn After Reading by Brothers Coen, and with this there was Brad Pitt in it, a bunch of other famous actors. However, I didn't love this as much. The Coen's brother is hit or miss with me. Some of his bear movies I absolutely love to pieces. Some other movies I really didn't like. This was kind of the middle. I didn't mind watching it, but I will never rewatch it. I would never suggest it. It's a 3-star movie, because at the end of the day I cannot say it was horrible by any means, or that there is something I can pick on, or that I really hated, or whether. I just overall didn't really enjoy it, and I thought it was a bit flat, not very interesting. And the last movie I actually watched was Mulan on Disney. It's the adaptation, the live adaptation from the animation that came out in the 90s or 80s, I think in the 90s. This was a big deal for me because Mulan is my favorite animation from Disney together with Hercules. So those two were my top two. So great action. I love the action sequence. I love our main character, but it was too different. They took away elements that there was no reason to take out. They put on scenes and other elements that why? I don't know why they made the choice they did. And I guess they didn't even consult someone who particularly loved the movie, because if you ask anybody who probably loved Mulan growing up as a kid, they would have probably said, no, that's a shitty idea, you shouldn't do it like that, you should be really loyal to the original. And you could have taken those action scenes and made a perfect movie out of them, and instead they didn't, and they took away characters that were staple of the movie, and they're not there. It's just a mess. It is a mess. The actress, she was so great, the action was so great, it's really a pity. But I ended up giving this 2.5 stars, and I've been probably generous. I'm so sorry. I really hope that one day they will do this again properly, even with the same actress. Like, I loved her. Just do it properly, for God's sake. That's the end of me ranting over things that I loved. But majority of things I watched I loved, even because like a majority of things I do not love, I just give up on. If you have any recommendation, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care. Ciao.